If you watch a lot of running on YouTube, you're going to watch a lot of heroes, runners at the punchy end of it all. From Philly to Jake, there's Rory, there's Cole, Ben, Nick, Ben, Eric, Ben. Okay, I just wanted to say Ben a third time. I don't put myself in that category. But I consider these people my friends. But can I train like them? Hell no! For a start, I've got a crushing and physical full-time job. Also, I'm held together with wishes and hope. And I'm old. So, how does the average person train for a marathon? And as luck would have it, Berlin training started for us this week, so I'm going to run you through it all. And if it helps, I'll swap you for a subscribe. Deal? Okay, onwards. 18 weeks is actually a long time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a few different examples how people might structure their marathon training. But I'm going to focus, obviously, on how Mary and I do it as busy teachers trying to fit running within our life. But before we go into us, let's just focus on how you might want to do it if you're a beginner. I like to use an undulating system, which basically just means you run every other day. So as you can see, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday on the first week, and then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So you're running a 4-3 pattern, and that way you're never running back-to-back days. And if you look down the page at volume style trainers, people that like running lots of days, or high-level runners, and you might be looking at 5 days, 6 runs, or even 6 days, 7 or 8 runs. So there's quite a lot of volume in there. Neither of which work for us, but they work for a lot of people. So let's look at us and how we do it. We have 4 runs a week when we first start marathon training, and they look like this: Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. But there are 2 absolutely crucial cornerstone sessions that we never miss. They sit above the rest, they're non-negotiable. The first one is on a Sunday, the long run, and we're gonna go and do it now. So for us, the long run comes in on a Sunday. I suppose it's a little bit because it's what we've always known, but a little bit because we know that Monday for us is a non-running day. So when we get up to the really punchy distances, then we know the next day we won't be running. We can give our legs a rest.
I like it.
Why do you like it?
So because we work full time, got a busy week, like Saturday, you can kind of chill and get ready, especially for the big distances.
Yeah, that's true.
Sunday's a nice day off.
It's not going straight into it after a working week. Yeah, that's a good point. And if you're wondering how we know what distance of a long run to run each week, that bit's actually pretty easy. We get to our race date, we give ourselves a 3-week taper, and then that is where the longest run is, usually about just over 20 miles or 35 kilometers. Or if you're a little bit slower, 3 hours, because you don't really want to go over the 3-hour mark when you're doing your long run. And then each week, progressively back towards now, we kind of just take about 10% off that long run and get to a point where, for us actually, we're starting next week with a half marathon, because we can comfortably do a half marathon already. So you get back to where you're comfortable, and if that's 10 kilometers, that's where that is. And the other absolute essential about the long run is that when you get up into those longer distances, they're essentially you're revising your mock exam for the actual exam, which is the marathon. So you get to practice your fueling strategy. You get to wear the clothes you might wear for the race. What else do you practice? Oh, the shoes.
Night before meal.
Yep. A little mini carb load practice. Basically, you want to make sure you've controlled all of the possible controllables for race day, so that on actual race day, everything is calm. You practice everything. I mean, you know, everybody knows the adage, right? Nothing new on race day. And that's why you practice it in runs like this. So that is cornerstone session number 1. Done, in the bag every week, but there's another cornerstone session.
And the other good thing about the cornerstone run This is a breakfast afterwards.
And it's worth me saying right now that if you do want a little bit more guidance and a little bit of community, we run a marathon training class for a spring marathon and one for an autumn full marathon, which is just open now, class 4. So we're training for Berlin Marathon, but there's loads of people in that group and we do a live weekly call every week. We answer all of your questions. There's a Facebook group, a WhatsApp group, accountability is high, and I'll put the details for how you could join that through the membership option or just the class 4 option in the link to the video in case you want more help. But I'll try and help you as much as I can here as well. And the second session that we have as non-negotiable is on a Tuesday, and that is our interval day. This is the second cornerstone session. It doesn't have to be a track, by the way, but it is a session on a Tuesday where we come somewhere, usually a track, let's be honest, and we run intervals. But the beauty of calling it intervals rather than lactate threshold or tempo or speed is that those intervals can be any and all. So what this session looks like varies completely throughout the entire year and even actually in the marathon cycle. So when we train for a marathon, sometimes this session might be a marathon paced session of intervals. Sometimes, or most of the time, it's lactate threshold.
And outside of marathon season, we might do speed work on the track or maybe some tempo work as intervals.
So the important thing is that we hold space, and we know at some point on a Tuesday we're going to run harder than our race pace usually, and certainly harder than our easy pace. That's what this is about, rather than just every single week doing lactate threshold work, although that is kind of what we're doing now. We're in marathon training. Oh, why don't I take you on an interval right now? Which obviously, as usual when I do this, is a stupid idea, but Berlin Marathon just started. Like, Berlin Marathon training started today actually, but we're delaying it by 1 week because we're tapering for a High Rocks race next weekend. But what this will become is lactate threshold work, which we love and we value so highly. Mary's working hard as well, doing the same session as me. Bye bye. This session will exist during a marathon training block no matter where we are, whether we have a track or not. We like to work hard and push the lactate threshold up. That won't change. These sessions we found so much benefit. I've got to go again, I can't even get my words out. But the point is, Tuesdays, cornerstone, intervals, changes through the year. At the moment, lactate threshold. This hurts. So in the early days, that makes Thursday, and that makes Saturday easy running days, just a way to get some miles into our legs very safely with as minimal stress as possible. So here's the things that I've picked up over the last couple of years about easy running that's really changed the game for me. And the first one is that easy means easy. It doesn't mean top of zone 2 because you're still working your aerobic base zones. What it does mean is I can run like this, I can talk to the camera, I feel pretty unbothered by the whole effort level. And if I'm doing that, then this is just a way of getting additional miles into the legs, and it's absolutely what the pros do. They fill their week with runs like this. In fact, I heard quite an interesting fact that if you give elite Kenyan or Ethiopian runners an hour to run, they'll see how little distance they can cover in that hour. Like, they really take their time. And for us living in Thailand, a lot of my easy runs are actually done here on the treadmill, because easy out there when you feel like you're running in an oven isn't actually easy. So I whack the temperature down here and I try and replicate as best I can kind of temperatures to running in the UK, which you can't do because it's still very, very hot here, but you get what I'm saying. I want these runs to feel as easy as they possibly can, and I recover so easily from these runs as well. I tend to just get off the treadmill pretty much unbothered, have a nice stretch, and off I go on my way. So these, for me, are the runs that kind of supplement the cornerstone runs that we do. So what do we do with the other days? Well, Friday is almost always, unless we actually have to move some sessions around, is almost always a day off, just complete rest before the weekend's back-to-back runs. And then Monday and Wednesday are, well, I'll show you. Actually, I don't have to come far from the table to make my next point, but on a Monday and on a Wednesday, we'll do a variety of gym-based activities, whether that be at home or actually go to a gym. It doesn't really matter, but the way that we've structured it, I guess, is on a Monday, I do this kind of workout. So I have a Pilates ball. I'll start again. I have a Pilates ball. We do more mobility style work, or we do things that are body weight more than weights, and I have a routine that I do that was given to me by a physio last year. Then on a Wednesday, we'll go to a gym and we'll lift heavier, so more like deadlifts or squats or something with more weight, because that's after our interval session on the Tuesday. And those two styles of sessions seem to work for us quite nicely, so we've managed to carry on all the way through our training blocks, especially the training blocks for high rocks. Now that gets us through the first 8 weeks. That's what our training looks like for the first 8 weeks. But once our legs are used to the volume, once we're building up the distances, we move to weeks 9 to 15, which we call the build block. And that changes a little bit. So in the build block, we still run our 4 days. Mary runs an additional day, which is the Wednesday. So we're making that 5 runs or 5 days running a week. I actually cycle, but it's a cardiovascular exercise. So that's the first thing. We add a day of cardiovascular exercise. And in the build block, we get rid of this on a Wednesday. And I get on this on a Wednesday. This is my aerobic base building work on a Wednesday because I don't want to do 5 runs a week. Mary gets out onto the road and adds in that 5th run. And again, that seems to have worked really, really well for us in Chicago, so we're keen to repeat it in this block now. It doesn't have to be run. Aerobic work is aerobic work, and I found, being a triathlete as a background, the bike works nicely for me. But here's the next thing. 2 sessions become a little bit more specific in terms of the marathon preparation. And we'll start with the Thursday. When we get into the build blocks, this Thursday run right now, this changes completely. It goes from this kind of easy run to a much punchier type of marathon pace run, where I'm trying to hold what I would expect to run on marathon race day, which is around here. So now we have other spaces in our week for our really easy running, and this one becomes tempo or marathon pace every Thursday, just trying to get that feel of what it's going to be like on race day. And the second day that changes is the Sunday. And I'm gonna be completely honest with you, if we were living in the UK, it would definitely change. It doesn't automatically change with us in Thailand for a very obvious reason, but I'll let me, out on a run, explain it. Oh, Sundays have just got a little bit trickier, because actually when we get to build block, what we tend to do is, instead of just long, easy run, we start to sprinkle intervals at marathon pace into our long runs. Now, as I said, we don't tend to do it very much in this country because it sends our heart rate sky high. But if we were in the UK, we'd be looking at intervals at marathon pace, maybe start with 3 lots of 3 kilometers and then 3 lots of 4, just gradually build that time up at marathon pace within the long run, and then use the down parts to recover. But yeah, I mean, even now, it would be way too hot to try that business. So we go from this to this, from 4 runs on 4 days to 6 runs over 5 days. It's not a huge increase, but it's enough just to tip the balance and get us fine-tuned for when it comes to that marathon. And in this case, Berlin, when we have some pretty lofty goals. If you want to learn more about all things running, then you want to consider subscribing to the channel. And if you are specifically training for a marathon or want to learn more about training for a marathon, then consider joining Class 4. All the details are in the description, or we have a load of membership options. And this last one, you're definitely going to like this video, which is how you fuel for a marathon. Hope it's helped. See you next week.